Hello, everyone, and welcome to the presentation on our new regulations for 2023 for the OEKO-TEX Association. My name is Jonathan Burley. I am the Eco-Passport product manager here, and I will be presenting the English version of the new regulations presentation. And with that, let's get started. And let's get started with labeling news, specifically the label editor. So all layout versions of the OEKO-TEX labels can now be downloaded via the label editor in the My OEKO-TEX platform, no longer in the label details section, as some of you might have become accustomed to. And by clicking on the download label, which you can see here in the bottom right, the user will be redirected to the tab Label Editor, where the label hang tag can be downloaded. Specifically for Made in Green, we have some updates as well. It is now possible for retailers that do not own a Made in Green label, but do sell Made in Green label products in their assortments. So they can now receive an advertisement label. And the number of the advertisement label can be validated on the OEKO-TEX label check, which you can see a little bit down below here. To obtain one of these advertisement retailer labels, please contact your Made in Green contact person if this is something that you are interested in. Probably the biggest portion of today's new regulations and changes is the changes in limit values. Specifically for the Standard 100, the Leather Standard, and the Eco-Passport. So at the beginning of each year, the OEKO-TEX Association updates the applicable test criteria and limit values and requirements for its range of certifications and labels. And here we will be presenting to you a complete list of all the changes to the RSL, so the restricted substance list of the Standard 100, the Leather Standard, and the Eco-Passport. These changes will go into effect on April 1st, 2023 for the Standard 100 and the Leather Standard. However, for the Eco-Passport, these changes will go into effect this year on February 1st. So please be aware of that. But before we really start about what has been added, we will quickly be discussing substances that are or were under observation. Under observation means that these substances have not yet been added to the restriction substance list. There are mere candidates, and we have been checking, researching if they are harmful for the human body, as well as their relevance for the textile industry. Now, for the Standard 100 specifically, we have removed some substances under observation, CMC or CMK, TC, MBT, and OIT. These have all been removed from under observation. They will be kept for the Leather Standard and Eco-Passport. They are part of the restricted substance list, but they will not be added for the Standard 100. And for all certifications, we have removed CI Disperse Red 60, this colorant, from under observation. It will not be added to the restricted substance list. There are some substances that require more analysis from us and which we are keeping for under observation at the moment. Specifically, these are the bisphenols AF, F, and S, as well as certain diisocyanates. Excuse me. We also have some new substances that we have set under observation, and these are drometrizole, which was added for Standard 100, Leather Standard, and Eco-Passport, and N-ethyl-2-pyridinidone, which is also called NEP, which has been added for the Standard 100 and the Leather Standard for under observation, but has directly been added for the Eco-Passport, which we will be touching upon a little bit later. Now, we have also added some substances to our restricted substance list, which were under observation before. Specifically, these are the substances you can see right here. So this toluene, this aniline, and benzidine, they have been added to all certifications with a limit value of 20 milligrams per kilogram. The 2-methoxy-1-propanol has been added only for the Annex 6 of the Standard 100, not the Annex 4, with a limit value of 10 milligrams per kilogram, and it has been added for the OEKO-Passport with a limit value of 50 milligrams per kilogram. The 1,2-deoxyethane has been added with 10 milligrams per kilogram. However, for the OEKO-Passport, it has been added with 100 milligrams per kilogram. Then we have also added 2-MBT with 1,000 milligrams per kilogram, as well as the colorant solvent yellow 34, or it's also called CI basic yellow 2, with 50 milligrams per kilogram as its limit value. We have also added some pesticides under observation, which you can see here. I will not be counting all of them up, but what should be kept in mind is that the limit values are 0.5 milligrams per kilogram for the product class 1 of the Standard 100 and the leather standard. And for the product classes 2 to 4, the limit is 1 milligram per kilogram. For the OEKO-Passport, we don't really have limits. We just have it as no intentional use. So they should just not be used as a part of the products themselves. We have also had some PFAS changes. As you can see here, I won't be going into too much detail, but please be aware that the limit values have gone down quite a bit. We have some values that are down to 25 micrograms per kilogram, but mostly they are at 250 micrograms per kilogram. And this is relevant for the Standard 100, leather standard, and OEKO-Passport. We also now have a total organic fluorine content, which we check. So in general, we ban the intentional use of PFCs or PFAS in the Standard 100, leather standard, and OEKO-Passport starting this year, 2023. And we are starting with a limit of 10 milligrams per kilogram. However, there will be a 1-year transition period for product categories 2 to 4, and there will be no transition. However, there will be no transition period for product class 1 as well as OEKO-Passport. There is also special exception for personal protective equipment, or PPE, which will get an exception for the total organic fluorine content. We will not be checking it there. We have also added some substances of very high concern, or SVHCs. As you can see here, these 3 have been added to the Standard 100, leather standard, and OEKO-Passport, but the one in the middle, as you can see, has only been added to the Standard 100 Annex 6 as well as the OEKO-Passport. And there are some substances that have only been added for the OEKO-Passport, but not the Standard 100 or leather standard, which are 2-MBT, the NEP, which we touched upon a little bit before, both at 1,000 milligrams per kilogram as a limit value. We also have the trimethyl phosphate, which was added with 100 milligrams per kilogram, as well as certain paraboric acid and sodium salt with 1,000 milligrams per kilogram. You have also added some pH exceptions. So for wet wipes, the pH is now from 3.5 to 7.5 in the Standard 100. And for chamois leather, the pH is now on 3.45 until 10, in that range for the leather standard specifically. We also had some changes for MCCP and SCCP, specifically for the leather standard. The MCCP limit value is reduced to 100 milligrams per kilogram. And the sum limit value created here is 100 milligram per kilogram as well. so for MCCP and SCCP. With that, we are finished with the limit value changes for the standard 100 EcoPassport leather standard. So let's also go into some leather origin changes. We have made some changes here in the standard because we really want to know the origin of the processed hide or skin, and if it is expected to be known. Now we have it so that it is expected to be known, that the source has to be in accordance with the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, and other legal requirements. We also have an implemented traceability system and risk analysis, which we would highly recommend for you to control and monitor the possible. So we want you to have knowledge of the possible involvement of farms and hide or skin suppliers, if they are in any way involved with deforestation, so that we can exclude the risk of the hide and skins coming from those kind of area of both legal and illegal deforestation. Especially for hides and skin with the origin of Brazil and Paraguay, a strict traceability system is highly recommended to exclude any involvement of deforestation in the Amazon biome. So physical marking and reliable data system is also recommended to be implemented in the production process to ensure traceability for unprocessed or incoming leather material, at least back to the slaughterhouse group, region, or country, by targeting full transparency back to the farm. And for this, we have also added a few new questions to the application form itself. So the first one is, please indicate the country of origin for your hide, skin, or leather material which you are applying for. You can add the country. Then we have another question of, do you consider in your purchasing practice that your or processed hide or skin is coming from species appropriate husbandry and animal welfare, considering animal farming and facilities or facilities? You can answer yes or partially or no. And the third question is a risk analysis in regard of legal and illegal deforestation to avoid leather material coming from such areas implemented or considered in your purchasing practice, where you can answer yes or only for leather materials from countries with high risk of deforestation, or no. So much for the new leather standard. We have something else which is pretty exciting, which is one of two new certificates, specifically organic cotton, the new organic cotton certificate. So this is a new certification where we focus on the traceability of also the chain of custody. So starting from the ginning process up to spinning, knitting, and weaving, dyeing, and confection, we really want to have each step certified along this chain to really see if there is full organic cotton, so we can avoid any kind of greenwashing. And we also work together with the certificate from the IFOAM family of standards at the cotton farm level. So here we also have two kinds of label with organic cotton. We have the full organic cotton, which is simply called organic cotton. Here, 100% of the material should be organic cotton. And along the whole value chain, this should be traceable with either the organic cotton certificate or the traceability certificate. While testing, no more than 10% is allowed to be detected as GMO, and it must pass any test for pesticides. With that, one would receive the organic cotton label. There is a kind of in-between label, which we call organic cotton blended, where only 70% of the material has to be organic cotton. Here it is similar across the whole value chain. The certificate has to be, the organic cotton has to be traced with either traceability certificates or the organic cotton certificate. Here are the same, GMO test has to be less than 10%, test for pesticides has to be passed, and with that one would receive the organic cotton blended label. If it is less than 70% organic cotton, it will just receive the usual typical standard 100 certificate, which also involves a GMO and pesticide test, and also, yeah, which is where one would receive the standard 100 label. And yeah, these are probably the most important differences to the standard 100. For one, more pesticides are covered within the organic cotton. There is an on-site visit not every 3 years, but every year, and it has to be performed before the certification. And for the transaction certificates, from ginning, spinning onwards, they're only allowed to have the transaction certificates from OEKO-TEX. And these are followed follows each change of ownership. There has to be a certificate, and so the full chain of custody is covered. And the requirement for the input materials, so at the farm level, have to be farm level certifications. So it's IFOAM, the family of standards. Okay, let's move on with the changes to the EcoPassport. First of all, starting April 2023, there will be a mandatory self-assessment. So up to this point, the self-assessment had always been voluntary, but as I said, on the 1st of April this year, the self-assessment will become mandatory for the OEKO-TEX EcoPassport certification. The on-site visit will remain optional for the time being, and the first certification or renewal issued after the 1st of April must be accompanied by a valid self-assessment. For certain existing customer, a transitional period may be applied. Please ask your institutes if this is something that would apply to you. There have also been certain updates to ZDHC, which is the organization for abbreviated from Zero Discharge of Hazardous Chemicals. So for those who know, probably most of you know that they have published their new manufacturer restricted substance list from 2.0. It has been updated to 3.0, and they have also added a new conformance guidance. 2.0 used to be 1.0, which both will be going into effect on February 2023. The EcoPassport will meet these requirements in the coming year to guarantee a smooth transition for all customers. So for the MRSL 3.0 specifically of the ZDHC, we are already fully ready for these changes from the MRSL 2 to the MRSL 3 in 2023 this year. That way, you won't miss a beat in your renewal or any new EcoPassport certification. A little bit more for the conformance guidance 2.0. So the DDC had changed their requirements for their different conformance levels. For those who don't know, there are 3 different conformance levels, 3 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. So for level 1, this will mostly stay the same and will include the screening and the analytical testing. Level 2 now includes the on-site visit in addition to the self-assessment. And level 3, which used to be the on-site visit, now includes a chemical hazard assessment capability plus evidence that level 1 and 2 principles of the ZDHC MRSL conformance are fulfilled. Here's a little overview what this really means for the EcoPassport certifications options. So before, if one had a CAS number screening and an analytical verification, this would lead to level 1. not really any changes here. So this will still lead to level 1. For the self-assessment, some new extra questions have been added. So as of February, every renewal or new EcoPassport certification has to be accompanied with the new self-assessment questions. The self-assessment will become mandatory anyway in 2023. And this used to lead to level 2, now it also leads to level 1. However, with the on-site visit, we have to, there have been some new questions added. So there have to be a verification of the new criteria for this management system as of February. And it used to lead to level 3, but now leads to level 2 of the ZDHC conformance. The chemical hazard assessment is now part of the self-assessment and on-site visit. It has been included there. We've included the new criteria for management systems and the chemical hazard assessment. This used to not be available before 2023 on February. As of February, this will be available, and this will lead to the ZDHC conformance level 3. So now let's move on to STEP. Specifically, let's start with the impact calculator for the carbon and water footprint. So the impact calculator has been available now for some time, specifically almost a year now, for our STEP customers since January 2022. And by logging into the My OEKO-TEX profile of the STEP customer, they could then do that in the STEP assessment. We now have 59 STEP customers who are using the impact calculator already, and it can now be, as it is distinguished between validated reports and non-validated reports from April 2023. We have had some updates here, so we have improved some bugs. They have been solved. We have updated the emission factors. We have made some design improvements in the material and process section, and in the energy and water section, the following input areas are now updated. For electricity, we have divided it into direct and indirect. And for fuel, it was previously called steamed. It was also divided into direct and indirect. We also have some results are divided into different scopes, and final reporting now includes the statement based on self-declaration data and input values in the case data has not been verified by an institute. We also quickly want to talk about the Beehive, which is a digital chemical solution tailored to the OEKO-TEX STEP requirements. So the approach here of this project was the involvement of the chemical management module by digitalization of the chemical inventory that each production site has. So the Beehive is used here as a supporting software in the background, where databases of chemical products can be used by our customers. The Beehive can be used by STEP customers with chemicals only. So the goal here is to ease and automize the auditing process for factories and auditors, and to enhance the overall data quality, close data gaps that can happen, and continuously track the chemical inventory. In 2022, we started this project in the beginning of 2022. Then in Q2 and Q3, we had certain IT developments. We then, in the end of the year, started testing and have now gone into so based on what we had seen in the testing period, we are now going into improvements based on the feedback we received. And the plan is to go live as of April in 2023. then is where the STEP customers should be able to use the Beehive within their certificate. Coming back to ZDHC, for STEP, we are looking at the wastewater testing alignment. So what has been done here to ease the process for our customers and work toward an industry alignment, we have successfully updated the limits for wastewater testing in alignment towards ZDHC wastewater 2.0. What's new here? For some parameters, testing required has been added in the Annex 3. One parameter for facilities with direct discharge in the field of wastewater effluents has been changed. Facilities with indirect discharge must no longer test the treated discharged wastewater for conventional parameters. Sludge testing has been simplified as well for our STEP customers. And facilities producing viscose and modal fibers do not require to test all the parameters listed in the standard, and special requirements are mentioned under Annex 6 in the standard here. We've updated the wastewater sampling point for indirect discharge. So certain sampling points for indirect discharge are now defined in the standard under Annex 5.1.2, and facilities with indirect discharge, the treated discharged wastewater must no longer be tested for conventional parameters. Coming back to sludge testing is now only necessary for MRSL Group 1, so AP, APEO, and APEOs. For Group 12, which are the PAH, and Group 7, only part of the chlorinated toluenes. The limit adopted for the P has been adopted now for pH from 0.6 to 0.2. And for the viscose and modal production, facilities producing viscose and modal fibers do not require to test all parameters listed in Annex 3, as stated before, and only APOs, total chrome, cadmium, copper, nickel, chrome, et cetera, in Annex 6.1 are all conventional parameters listed, which are also relevant. We also have a bit more alignment with the SVHC and REACH and some others for the STEP MRSL. So firstly, the new MRSL compounds of Annex 3, we have added some groups to some arylamines. As you can see here, I will not be listing all of them since the names are quite long. We have also added for Group 4 hazardous colorants, which you can see down here. And we have added one organotin compound, dipropyl tin. There have been changes to PFAS as well, because there have been updates from the Commission regulation of the EU in August 2021. And this means that for the MRSL Group 6, PFCs, per and polyfluorinated compounds, and per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, so PFAS, have now been added according to the OECD guidelines, which are some various substances which have been added, not listed here. We have also added the NEP, which we discussed earlier, under observation, which had also been added for standard 100 and the leather standard, as well as 2 MBT, which had been added for the other 3 standard certificates as well. As well as the 3 SVHCs, which we added for standard 100, leather standard, and eco passport, which you might remember from before. They have been added to STEP Group 14 as well. And then we also have glutaraldehyde, which has been added under Group 14, And an additional footnote has been added for the standard for version 1 of 2023. And the footnote is, it is accepted as an in-can preservative. We also have some updates from the step assessment itself. So we made a big review of the step assessment and made a lot of changes. So 93 questions in total have changed. 4 questions have been deleted or consolidated. There are 7 new questions which have been added. Examples cover for leather, skin or leather material, in accordance with CITES or other legal requirements, consider a raw material and purchasing practice, as well as new questions for the wet spinning process. 59 questions with changes regarding structure or wording have happened. So additional exclusion criteria were added due to benchmarking criteria of the Green Button 2.0. And detailed information about the changes are shared with our customers. Supporting documents for the questionnaire and new regulation products files are available. And I want to also talk about more exciting news, which is our second new certificate, the Responsible Business, which has launched at the end of last year. So responsible business was introduced due to global expectations on due diligence. We had the EU proposal for the directive on corporate sustainability due diligence, the German Supply Chain Act, and here in Switzerland, the indirect counter proposal to the Corporate Responsibility Initiative of 2022. There are also some others which you can all see down below here. So with the responsible business certificate, we are trying to look at human rights, the environment, management process, and global supply chain. But what we're really looking at is the management processes of a company, where we want to evaluate how well human rights and environmental due diligence obligations are integrated into the business enterprise and business activities. And the purpose here is to understand the risks in the supply chains and to stop or at least mitigate those risks. So this is a new certification for brands and retailers. So responsible business, as I said before, prevents or mitigates existing and potential negative impacts of business operation within their own activities, the supply chain, and the wider business relationships. Our target group here really for this responsible business certificate are brands or brand groups, as well as retailer on traders, so pretty downstream of the supply chain. And the benefits for having one of these kind of responsible business certificates is that you will have a structured approach to your how you approach the kind of business dealings you have here. You'll have a modular structure of the certification, so assessments of the status quo of your due diligence implementations in the company, and you will have an independent audit and certification from OEKO-TEX. And this also facilitates reporting to the different authorities. So we have our standard as well as an implementation manual, which can be found on our website, as well as an assessment questionnaire. If the assessment questionnaire has been filled out and we can perform an audit, that is how the certification of responsible business is then received. A little bit about the responsible business facts and figures. So the label responsible business, it can be received after the certification, which is a new OEKO-TEX label. The costs are pretty individual according to the complexity of the business model and the efforts that have to be taken. The duration to receive one of those certifications as of the handing in the assessment, so starting from submission of documents, is around 8 to 12 weeks, but of course depending from the level of due diligence implementations on the documentation level. And the communication here is internal business communications within B2B as well as B2G communication, which is targeted. And a little bit about the timeline. Lastly, we started the launch in November of 2022, so it's a fairly young certificate. And this is just right on time because the Supply Chain Act has just gone into effect, and end of the Q1 of this year, we will also have an auditor training and an external webinar for the Responsible Business Certificate. And January 2024, we will have our first document revision. And with that, we're finished. Thank you very much and for paying attention. And I hope you have had an in-depth experience here with our new regulations, so you have an idea what's coming this year. Thank you very much, and goodbye.